if this is shown as anything, is that you do not necessarily go by the consensus. You're going to look at the tape, you're going to evaluate it for yourself, and not be pressured by anyone else to put anyone high just because a lot of other people are. So we'll start with number 5 for you, your number 5 defensive tackle prospect.
Well, Jordan Elliott from Missouri. I think that's where I'm going to start. I mean, first off, the defensive tackle position, like you said, it's a talented group. There's more guys in this group that merit first-round picks than I expected when I started to break this down. And the more I get into this draft, I actually am starting to realize I probably have like 45 guys that I have first-round grades on. So I think there's a little bit of better high-end quality in this draft than I realized going into it. But, this kid reminds me a little bit of Sheldon Richardson, who came out of Missouri, okay? Maybe not quite as athletic as Sheldon Richardson was, but maybe more power than he has altogether. And I was just shocked as the film kept going on. I mean, this is a disruptive interior 4-3 defense, 3 technique type of defensive tackle, like a Sheldon Richardson is, okay? But he's unbelievable at getting off blocks. He has incredible upper body strength, Ahmed. I mean, when people are on him and he's in a fight with a double team or whatever, I mean, he's just raw, get off me. And he's got great eyes into the backfield to know where the running back is to properly disengage with the guy blocking him, right, to throw him the right way, so therefore then he could go tackle him. So I love that about him. He's got great hands and great upper body strength to disengage from blockers, whether it's the run game or pass game. For a guy that's 302 pounds, it's a pretty good anchor versus double teams. And I mean that by, anchor, he can hold his ground. He doesn't get blown back 5 yards down the field. He played against a lot of good big-time SEC, NFL defensive linemen. But for a guy that doesn't necessarily have like the length where you would go, oh, he can play in a 3-4 defense, he's very good at two-gapping. And for all those out there, they go, what do you mean by two-gapping? He can really hold players up and play this gap or that gap according to which way the ball carrier goes. And some defenses are going to really value that. But, man, his grip and rip move as far as pass rush goes, he's incredibly disruptive, and he is a true mismatch for guards and pass protection. So I look at this guy as just being an all-around really good football player who's a good athlete and has the ability to, be a little bit of a defensive tackle sack machine to a degree and be disruptive that way. I was really impressed by what I saw.
PFF, Pro Football Focus, very high on him, had him the highest graded defensive tackle in college from this past season.
Okay, that's good to know.
He did it in the SEC, which is impressive as well in Missouri. And as you mentioned, offensive linemen that he faced would often give him special attention, a double team. And so he did have to produce and do his job when he was the main focal point. You got to stop him if you're taking on Missouri. Some of the negatives that I found out there that a couple of scouts put on him, it took him a while to show up in college, which maybe necessarily isn't a bad thing. Maybe he's just now figuring it out. And also that he has moments when his motor cools in pursuit and maybe doesn't finish on the big plays. But there weren't a whole lot of negatives out there on Jordan Elliott.
Yeah, and again, I've heard that where people say, it was kind of just this last year where he started to flash and dominate and do things like that. Again, we got to remember, guys are kids. They're not men yet. And I don't mean to say that in a disrespectful way. I'm just telling you, when I was 21 years old, I grew another quarter of an inch. I was putting on pounds, and I went from 222 to 230 pounds. So, these are still growing boys, growing young men in a lot of ways, where they're still thickening out, becoming stronger, and doing those things. But man, Ahmed, the player itself, if you give him a gap to win and just say, hey, you need to win the gap between the guard and the tackle, he's going to be a handful because he's got great get off. He can explode through the gap itself and just cause havoc, or, my favorite stat, which is play up, let alone he's got a little bend around the edge passing, pass rushing from the inside on guards and tackles. And like I said, for 303 pounds, I was really impressed with his strength at the point of attack with double teams and getting blockers off him. Really good football player. I think he goes, I think I wrote down, I think he's somewhere between 20 and 40. in the NFL
Wow.
draft. So
Okay.
I think he's that type of prospect in my mind. Yep.
So you think all 5 of your defensive tackles have a chance to go possibly in the first round, late first round here. So number 5 is Jordan Elliott out of Missouri. Number 4, the number 4 defensive tackle prospect for Chris Simms.
Number 4 is Raekwon Davis from
Okay.
Alabama. And this is a different type of guy here. This is Richard Seymour. This is, let's say, Muhammad Wilkerson type of guy, Ahmed. It's not going to always be sexy, pretty. Oh my gosh, he's so explosive and athletic. No, he's a little bit more of a, first off, Alabama, the film can trick you if you don't know what to watch for. And Alabama, a lot of the times, they ask their D linemen, like, hey, not to fly upfield and cause disruption. They're like the New England Patriots. They kind of just say, hey, hold your guy, hold your ground, and whether it's a run or a pass, we want you to disengage, appropriately. Oh, here comes the ball. Get rid of your guy and tackle the ball carrier. Oh, now you see it's a pass. Let go of your guy or rip him out of the way and try to pass rush him that way. So they don't always get the green light to attack. But man, this is a giant human being who is very athletic for his size and really can play just about any position on the defensive line, Ahmed. Anyone in any scheme. It doesn't really matter. And I think that's really the big value to him, and he just never physically loses a battle, ever. Holds his ground, two gaps, causes more disruption than you would expect for a guy this size, can just simply overpower guys and push them back into the backfield. But, I'm big on what does your bad look like? And your bad for a guy like Raekwon Davis is like, oh, you get a stalemate at the line of scrimmage and you don't move him at all. That's as bad as it gets. And there's going to be great value in that in the NFL. And I think he's a hell of a player. And yes, again, I think another guy that's in that late first round, early second round conversation. And not all defenses are going to like him, Ahmed. I don't know if a lot of 4-3 base defenses like the Seattle Seahawks, I don't think they'll like him. But New England, Baltimore, some of the teams that have more of the 3-4 in them, I think they're going to look at him and go, oh, this is our kind of guy. He's a stud.
Things that are noted here: tools for days. You mentioned the elite physical traits, so big, 6'6", 311. Long and strong was one of the direct quotes that I saw from one of the scouts out there. Very versatile in what he can do. I guess the question with him, and you touched on it a little bit with the production with him and the numbers, and,
right.
And you're not a guy that looks at numbers and stats.
Not
and
at all.
You look at his physical ability, but there's a little bit of a worry out there that 2017 was the best version of Raekwon Smith. Just 2 sacks his final 2 years. He didn't necessarily get better throughout his college career is one of the knocks on him. How would you respond to that?
Well, I think, again, the stats don't always tell the story. It just doesn't. We look at sacks sometimes, and I can see a guy that's got 10 sacks, and I go, well, like 8 of them were coverage sacks, or like the quarterback fell down. So are we going to give the guy like a first-round grade just because he got 10 sacks? No. There's more to it. But I think the big thing is, and this happens a lot with the Alabama guys, like I said, because it's not about stats or tackles or disruption with them. They're asked to do different things. And, I'll bring up the example of a guy for the Washington Redskins, Daron Payne. A lot of people thought he was like a second or third round choice out of Alabama a few years ago at defensive tackle. And it was the same type of question. Well, there's not a lot of tackles. There's not a lot of sacks. There's no production. But that just wasn't his job. His job was to hold the fort down and just, create a mosh pit in the middle of an offense and defensive line. That's what his job was. If he was given the green light to go, he could have been a lot more disruptive. But so that's where I really get into it. And, again, I've heard people say, oh, he's DeForest Buckner. I think he's more powerful than DeForest Buckner. I don't think he's as athletic as a DeForest Buckner. That's why I kind of said like the Richard Seymour, Muhammad Wilkerson type guy. And that's why he won't be for everybody's defense, because he's not that like shoot the gap like we just talked about with the Missouri kid, and he's going to fly in there and just ruin a play. No, that's not what he's going to do. He's going to be more of a, hey, this time we got him a nose tackle. This time we got him a 3 technique. Oh, hey, now we're in the 3-4. Now we need him head up on the tackle, and he's at a 2 gap. He's going to be able to do all those different things and be able to do them all at a very, very high level. And I think that's the thing I like about the man the most.
Was reading around, someone said he has the upside to be the best tackle in the draft, so there is still room to grow, still potential for Raekwon Davis out of Alabama, who Chris Simms has as the number 4 defensive tackle prospect heading into the draft. Number 3, we're into the top 3 already. Number 3, Chris, who you got?
Well, I'm going to which is OU, okay? And I'm going to Neville Gallimore, all right?
Neville, yeah.
Neville, sorry, I didn't mean to say that. I don't want to mess that up. But
Canadian Bulldozer is his nickname if you'd just rather go with that.
I love it because that's what he is. I don't even know where to start with this guy. First off, when you're 6'2", 304 pounds, and you run a 4.79, like, that'll make you go, I wonder what this film is going to look like, because you just go, is this a combine freak who's not that good on the football field? Or what is this going to look like? Or is he as freaky as the numbers look? And I came to the latter, that he's as freaky as the numbers look. I would have a hard time trying to come up with anybody other than Aaron Donald, who I would say is a better interior pass rusher that I've seen on film at the defensive tackle position the last 2 years. I mean, that's where this guy is. I mean, he's incredible. I mean, his quickness, his ability, like we talked about with the Missouri kid, to shoot through a gap and just ruin a play. I mean, it's as good as I've seen. It really is. And he has got legit athleticism as a pass rusher, but he is strong as hell. And, I know there's some knocks out there. People talk about, in run defense, he's not always perfect. Well, let me give people a little food for thought for at least what I saw there. Oklahoma's a team, Ahmed, that likes to stunt and slant their defensive linemen all over the place, right? So imagine you're Neville Gallimore, and you're over between this guard and center gap. And now the coach wants you at the snap to slant and go all the way to the other center and guard snap. Well, what if you're going to do that and now there's down block by the guard you're lined up over? So now you're running one way with a guy pushing you on your back, and do evaluators expect him to just stop cold in the hole and be like, 320-pound man on my back, you shall stop here because I stop? No, there's no human on earth that can do that. And I see too many comments with that where he gets moved in the running game. Listen, when they ask him to play one gap, the one that's in front of him, which he'll be asked to do more times than not in the NFL, he wins it almost every single time, let alone, like I said, the pass rush traits are really, really special for somebody that size playing defensive tackle.
There are so many positives when you're reading around on him. Runs like a tight end. You mentioned that 4.79 40 time. He's lost weight too. He shed about 25 pounds before this season. He benches 500 pounds, squats 800. So he's just a beast. He's fast. He's strong.
A beast.
Can blow up the place. And it is also noted here, he's going to be a plus in the locker room a guy, and he helped himself immensely at the Senior Bowl. So not only did he impress with his physical abilities, it seems like he is a plus in the character department as well. At least that's what the team evaluators are saying about him.
It's what I've heard. It's what it shows on film too, Ahmed. I mean, he hustles like no other. He's got an incredible motor that way. He's tough. He throws his body around. I mean, this was one of the pleasant surprises of the whole draft for me here. It really was. When I turned on the film, I just went, oh my gosh. Like I said, his ability to rush the passer from the inside, I say, is every bit as good as Ed Oliver or Aaron Donald. Now, is he quite as strong as they are at the point of attack? No, I'll say he's a little less than they are. But man, his athleticism, his twitch, his ability just to explode straight ahead and get on the edge of a pass protecting guard, and then now the guard can't catch up and he edges him and gets around him. I mean, it's impressive. I mean, this kid can be a star in the NFL and a major, major contributor to F the play up Chris Simms style in the NFL for sure.
So unless you're going completely off the board, it looks like defensive tackle, you're going to go with the consensus for the most part here, because I believe the top 2 defensive tackles out there are flip-flopping. There's not really a real consensus on who should be the number 1 guy off the board. So let's hear who's number 2 for you this year in 2020?
Well, it is a little bit, and I want to say this. I mean, this is almost as close as it gets to as far as a tie at the top, okay? I
Oh,
mean, I didn't know what to do. And with these two guys, too, as I flip through my notes and filibuster here, I want to let you know, too, I had a hard time figuring out who I wanted to make number one and number two. And the last thing I'll say about it, okay,
and you may
is
be still deciding. And with the way your filibuster is going right here, I feel like you still don't know who you want to put
no,
there.
I finally got to the pages where I got there. Okay.
Oh,
But I want to say this. All right. My number two is Javon Kinlaw, and my number one will be Derrick Brown. All right. But man, is it close. And first off, just let me make this blanket statement with both of these guys. These are top 5 picks in the NFL draft. That's how
wow.
good they are. I think they are worthy of a top 5 pick. Either one of them. It does not matter. They are definitely top 10 picks. I know that. But when I watch their film, I look at it and go, oh, it's every bit as good as Quinnen Williams last year. Yet these guys are bigger and stronger and can hold the ground better. So if you want me to start with Javon Kinlaw, I mean, it starts with built like a brick shithouse. I don't know. I've never seen many humans in the history of the world built like this guy. Like, it's insane, Ahmed. He is put together with, like, looks like he's got cuts and you can see definition in his arms. He's got an incredible legs and ass, as you know. I'm very big into that. And he's 325 pounds. And I look at him and go, if he wanted to put on weight to be 340, he could do it, no problem. I mean, it's really whatever the guy wants to do. But, I mean, first off, there's no weakness to the guy's football game. It's incredible strength. It's incredible get off the ball. It's incredible throwing would-be blockers off of him as he's trying to pursue the football or whatever it may be. I mean, there's really not anything I look at in my notes here to say negatively about him. I wrote, he's incredible at shedding blocks. His power is off the charts. Power and strength is unbelievable. Great get off. I mean, I wrote, man, I mean, he can like really run. Like, I was shocked. All right. If there's a negative, maybe he's a hair more stiff than our man Brown at Auburn, but quickness versus the pass versus guards. I mean, he could win with just straight ahead sheer strength, or he gets them off balance with like, a shimmy or a shake move, which like at 326 pounds, I don't know if I've ever seen a human do that. So I just looked at that and just went, man, this is a no-brainer. I mean, I didn't need to watch much film here. I watched a lot because it was fun to watch, but he is a dominant football player who's going to have a long, long career. And I had a hard time coming up with a comparison to this kid. You know, I want to say Ndamukong Suh is like the closest thing I could say to being like built like that, can move like that, is as aggressive like that. I mean, it's truly pretty remarkable to watch what he does on a play-by-play basis.
One of the negatives with him maybe could be, he had labrum surgery on his hip in 2018, but he played huge chunks even with that hip injury and played pretty well. So who knows? Maybe even that injury history is a strength as it shows what he was able to do despite being 100%. One of the things they note about him, and it's kind of interesting, the same thing you talk about receivers and their route running ability and if they displayed it in college and if they were asked to do it in college. He doesn't have a whole lot of moves, just has a push-pull and a swim move so far.
That's right.
But yet he was still very successful with just those 2 moves. You assume he's going to be able to learn more as he gets into the NFL, and so he is still a raw work in progress who is still able to be successful.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times when I hear that type of stuff about this player, and they're right. He doesn't win a lot of different ways. So just think about when you teach him some different ways to win, what he can do. There is something to that. Sometimes you find a player that's really, really polished in there, but doesn't have the physical ability, and the polish fools us all to go, oh, we think he's good. But then you get to the NFL, and a guard and a tackle know how to stop some of the advanced hand fighting the guy might have, and now it just goes, oh, let's see how big and strong and physically gifted you are, and all of a sudden they lose because they've lost that advantage of being well-schooled in some of the technical aspects you're talking about. So Kinlaw, I mean, Yes, there's really nothing to talk about. I mean, it's as good as it gets. I was in shock and awe, and you're right. I mean, there is not a lot of different ways he wins, but when he does learn some different pass rush moves and some different hand fighting techniques and things like that, watch the hell out. I mean, the thing I wrote at the end is just he can do it all. He's got no weakness to his game. I wrote, I think Brown is slightly better, but I'm going to have to take a second look to confirm because that's how close I thought it was. And yeah, this guy's he's a no miss, no brainer at some point in the top 10 for a football team.
Number 2, Javon Kinlaw may have been just 1B to your number 1 defensive tackle prospect in the class of 2020, Derrick Brown out of Auburn, another giant human being, 6'4", 326, and you say he too should be a top 5 pick in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. And again, another guy where I looked at and I went, who do I compare him to? I don't even I've never seen a human this big move this quickly and be this pliable. Like he reminds me in a lot of ways of Warren Sapp, except he's just a bigger human. He's like the 25 years later bigger version of Warren Sapp. It's just like evolution. Here's the best defensive tackle in football in the mid-90s, and now this is what the best defensive tackles look like in 2020. And that's what he is. He's got a similar build to that. I mean, just incredible athleticism for somebody his size. Long arms, and when he locks you out, it's over. And when he gets like this and people are trying to push him, it doesn't matter if it's one or two guys. It's over. He's going to stand his ground, and you're not going to move him. That's the first thing I loved about him. Rare size, athleticism, flexibility, pliability combo. I've never seen anybody this big be able to bend and move and, be in awkward positions and throw off an offensive guard or offensive tackle. He can win any way you want. That's the thing I wrote, towards the bottom. I just wrote, he can win with pure speed and just shoot the gap. He can overpower you and overwhelm you with his hands right up underneath your chin and just push you back. And then he can do some of the shimmy shake, too, that we just talked about with Kinlaw to make guards and tackles off balance. He gets you leaning one way, and then bam, bam, he hits you with your hands, and all of a sudden he's hitting your quarterback. So, again, he can play just about any position on the D-line, Ahmed. He could two-gap in a 3-4 defense. He can play shade nose. He can play 3 technique, and I only had one negative, okay? One thing. His body scares me a little bit, okay? That's where, it's a little too
I mean, it scares me too if he was in the room standing right next to me right now. Is that what you mean? He could squash me with a sneeze.
He could definitely squash us both. He would whoop the crap out of both of us in under a minute. No doubt about that. But you know me, I'm into bodies, and bodies do tell player, there's some commonalities there between a body and how long you'll last, or what kind of body might worry you, or whatever it may be. Okay. And I have no worries about Javon Kinlaw's body. Like I told you, he's a Greek god. This guy, has good legs, but not like the best legs. I'm into that. And there's a lot of weight in the midsection. Okay. And if I was just going to say one thing that scares me with a body like that, one bad offseason, one bad, I didn't care about what I ate and I didn't train very hard. And I worry a guy like that could get very sloppy in a hurry. That's my only concern. It has nothing to do with the play on the field. And again, I don't know the human being himself. That's where teams are going to have to do their due diligence to know, is this the kind of guy that'll stay in shape and stay on top of himself? Or will he let himself go at times and then try to battle back at some point? That'll be something for teams to digest. But again, another can't miss prospect, Ahmed. I mean, just an absolute freak and monster of a person.
And I think teams, even if he does gain that weight and he loses some mobility and a little bit of speed, teams are certain that he's going to be elite at stopping the run, taking on those double teams, and no matter what his body looks like. And so maybe that is why some people do have Kinlaw a little bit higher, because the ceiling, when we've talked about this before, floor and ceiling, it seems like the floor for Brown is very safe. He's going to be an elite run stopper probably his entire NFL career.
Yes,
Kinlaw
right.
will be good at stopping the run, but he also has a little more potential. Maybe he's more disruptive in the pass game.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. Brown maybe has better hands. He's got a little bit better bend. I think it's very close in all areas. I really do. And I'm interested just from, again, you know me, I don't really read a lot of different stuff on people. I see some mock drafts and things like that. But when you did your research, what did you see? Did you see more people you thought that had Brown in front of Kinlaw or Kinlaw in front of Brown?
It was about even. It really was even, because I saw a couple, and it seemed like the consensus early on was Brown, and then a couple of people bucked the trend with Kinlaw, and then that got in vogue, and so I think he's gaining some steam within the expert mock drafters right now. But the consensus with Brown is that, just like you mentioned, dominant run stuffer, was elite, and he returned his senior season, which turned out to be a really smart move for Derrick, because he was going to be a first rounder either way. But now he's a potential top 5 pick, and teams like him too. They're enthusiastic about him off the field, and so there's just a ton to like. And I think a lot of people came to the same conclusion that you did. Both of these dudes are really good.
Yeah, they are both really good. I don't think you can miss either way. I really don't. And like I said, I think they fit any scheme you want to play on the defensive side of the ball, let alone, hey, if you had a good 3 technique and you said, we already have a good 3 technique, you just go, well, this guy can play shade nose. If you had a great shade nose and you went, we already have a good shade nose, you go, well, this guy can play 3 technique. I mean, he really is going to work anywhere you want. But monsters, man, just couldn't say enough about them. And yes, I think they are. I think their top 5 talents would be like jaw-dropped shocked if they got outside the top 10. I really mean that.
Producer Pete Demolitis goes, boo, consensus, Chris sold out. The Twitter haters got to him. You were scared of the reaction by dropping Brown and Kinlaw out of your top 5.
Yeah, well, all I do is let the film talk to me. And not that it always talks to me the right way, but I just watch the film and watch the player, and I let that tell me. And then I get done, I look at my notes, and I start to read them, and that usually tells me the story. So, oh my gosh, I guess I'm not trying to get clickbait. I guess not. Damn, yeah. I don't know what to say.
You don't even have a website. There's nothing for people to click on, I think is what they're mistaking the point there. You have nothing to click on. If you're going to go do it for the clicks, you need something to click on.
Hey, one more guy I think we need to just give a little love to here, because I think that he is also in the first round conversation, is the Ross Blacklock from TCU. He to me has a little bit of, what we talked about with Jordan Elliott from Missouri, and a little bit of what we talked about with Neville Gallimore from Oklahoma. He's kind of like a combination of both. He's got a little more athleticism than a guy like Jordan Elliott from Missouri, but not as athletic as Gallimore. So that's kind of how I look at him that way. I mean, he can be very disruptive. I think he's going to have a really good career too. But he's a guy that I liked. He just came out of the top 5 for me there.
Maybe a little bit of a tweener, edge players, inside the tackle, not the biggest there. Yeah.
No doubt about it. He's a little bit of a tweener. I didn't love the way he looked and taking on double teams, and I think he will have a little problem of like standing up to certain teams as far as being a true defensive tackle. And I think that's ultimately, what made me not put him in the top part there.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.